Owlcat Games just announced they're making Mass Effect, except it's also Baldur's Gate 3 and Persona 5 and Dark Souls all at the same time in one game. They've just dropped new details on the Expanse Osiris Reborn, and I've been through every developer interview, every preview, every bloody quote they've given, and this thing sounds insane to say the least. They're not just making another RPG, they're attempting to fuse Mass Effect, Baldur's Gate 3, Persona 5 and Dark Souls into a single game, and the craziest part is, I think they might actually pull it off. Right, quick context in case you've been living under a rock. Summer Games Fest this year, Owlcat Games announced the Expanse Osiris Reborn, a third-person action RPG set in the Expanse universe. Now look, I'll be honest, I've never watched the Expanse. I know, I'm sorry. But from what I know, it's an acclaimed hard sci-fi series where there's no faster-than-light travel, no aliens, just humans who've colonized the solar system and are making an absolute mess of it. Politics between what the developers call the exploited asteroid dwellers versus the stuck-up Earthers versus the technologically advanced and ideological Marsborn. They all properly hate each other. The game's being made by the crazy geniuses behind the Pathfinder games and Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, except this time they're completely ditching the isometric camera and turn-based combat for third-person real-time shooting. Total genre switch, which sounds insane enough, right? But then they started explaining their influences, and this is where things get properly mental. So let's be clear about what they're attempting here. In recent interviews, they've straight up said they're taking inspiration from Mass Effect for the space exploration and ship crew dynamics, Baldur's Gate 3 for the cinematic storytelling where choices actually matter, Persona 5 for character development that spans the entire game, and Dark Souls for build discovery and experimentation. Their creative director Alexander Michelin recently said that Mass Effect is a huge inspiration for the team. It was played from cover to cover by many team members. Then he drops this: we are providing more choices and we are more focused on a modern approach. And more choices than Mass Effect is not a small claim. So essentially they're combining 4 different design philosophies mashed together into one game. Mass Effect's already complex enough, BG3 nearly broke Larian's brains making it work, Persona 5's character development is unmatched, and Dark Souls, well, that's just Dark Souls, we all know it. Any other studio attempting this combination would sound completely mental, right? But here's the thing, it's Owlcat Games, one of the only studios crazy enough to try something this ambitious, but also competent enough they might actually pull it off. These are the developers who took Pathfinder, a complex tabletop system most people said was impossible to adapt properly into a video game, and they made Wrath of the Righteous, one of the best CRPGs ever made. Now this game's been in development for about 3 or 4 years now I think, but get this, they made 6 different prototypes in the beginning just to make sure that the combat basics feel right. Michelin says that they spent almost a year doing prototypes, transitioning between the genres, so they're not rushing anything, it's proper iteration. But here's what's clever, they know they can't just wing a genre jump this massive, so they've hired developers from CD Projekt Red. Now say what you want about Cyberpunk's launch, and there's plenty to say of course, but these developers know how to make third-person action RPGs work. Michelin says that they welcome new team members from companies that have already done similar games, especially from CD Projekt Red. And is it just me, or does it seem like half of CD Projekt Red's talent is showing up at other studios these days? Not sure what to make of that, to be honest. But they didn't just hire new people, they've switched from Unity to Unreal Engine 5, complete technical overhaul, and that's a massive undertaking that shows they're serious about the transition. Plus, Michelin says this will be smaller than Rogue Trader, and that's not disappointing news actually. This is a studio that understands what's required for a project this ambitious. It makes sense. Right, here's the really interesting stuff. So when you create your character, you'll also create their sibling, same gender, so 2 brothers or 2 sisters. When you're creating a character, you're creating a character with a sibling. You can think about this character as your first companion and most loyal companion from the start. And that's genuinely never been done before from what I can recall. Most games just give you a generic starter companion. This one's literally family. And it's not just window dressing, your origin as an Earther, Martian or Belter doesn't just change a few dialogue options like most RPGs, it changes how entire factions and stations react to you. The developers are calling it a huge choice, not only in terms of RPG elements but also in terms of the storyline. If you're an Earther visiting belt stations after the political fallout from the show, expect proper aggro. But the clever bit is you can shift allegiances. Michelin says that maybe if you're playing a Martian but you want to help the Belters, their reaction towards you will slowly change. And your companions aren't just following you around like lost puppies either. The ones you don't take on your missions, they form their own teams, they handle separate objectives, they pursue their own goals. Michelin describes it like this: the crewmates you don't take take by your side won't just chill on your customizable ship, they'll help out and complete other mission objectives, maybe even going in as a secondary support team. Sometimes you'll meet up on missions, sometimes they'll bail you out of trouble, and that sounds brilliant. Proper squad management instead of companion window dressing. And yes, there's romance, they're promising deep narrative experiences that allow you to understand your character better. Not just Mass Effect style bedroom scenes, but actual character development through relationships, kind of like BG3 I guess. Now I know what you're thinking, this all sounds too good to be true. 4 legendary RPG influences, innovative companion systems, deep political consequences. It's the kind of promises every studio makes before shipping something completely different. And you'd be right to be skeptical, but here's why I'm not. Just look at Owlcat's track record. These are the developers who consistently deliver rich, engaging RPGs that actually respect your intelligence. When they promise complex choice systems, they deliver them. When they say your decisions matter, they bloody well matter. So when they're showing off their approach to this project, it's worth paying attention. Now some of you probably know way better than I do, but the Expanse is hard sci-fi, realistic space travel, proper physics, and as Michelin puts it, one big part of their Expanse experience is conveying that space is a very dangerous and unwelcoming place to be. Owlcat could have just made you manage your fuel consumption, calculate your burn times, plot realistic trajectories. Instead, they've just said no to what Michelin calls additional tediousness. We'll see realistic space travel in the cutscenes, but you won't be playing a spreadsheet. That's smart game design in my eyes. And they say the Dark Souls influence isn't about punishing difficulty or dying constantly, it's about discovery. No rigid character classes, just finding gear and abilities that work with your build. They're promising what they call a very open RPG system, allowing you to build whatever character you like. You experiment, you find what clicks, you build around it. And they've talked about different builds focused on weapons and targeting skills, others built around abilities and powers, and hybrid approaches that mix the two. And in my eyes, the Expanse setting is absolutely perfect for Owlcat. There's 3 faction politics where you can shift allegiances, you can play sides off against each other, even betray your own people for the right reasons. Michelin says that you can betray them and be a double agent and learn the secrets and sell those secrets to the other side. That's exactly the kind of choice-heavy, morally complex storylines they're known for. So the game itself is set between the first and second book, or from the first season to the second season and a half, I believe, starting on Eros Station during a deadly lockdown, and you're basically seeing the fallout of how it affects people across the solar system. And they're even bringing back actors from the show to reprise their roles. The whole thing's fully voiced, including your custom characters and siblings. Character creation is what they're calling very robust and expansive with a lot of options. So look, if Owlcat can combine Mass Effect's exploration with BG3's narrative depth, Persona 5's character development, and Dark Souls build variety, all while maintaining the Expanse's political complexity, this will genuinely redefine what a space RPG can be. They're showing it off properly at Gamescom in August this year. There's no release date just yet, but pre-orders are open. This could be something genuinely special, and it's definitely on my wish list. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment below about what your thoughts are on this game and if you'll be checking it out when it launches. Thanks again, I'll see you in the next one.